This is Yerushalmi Peah Daf Samach Aleph in the article Oz V'Hader edition, which is Mamash Atap Samach Aleph. We are at the beginning of Allah Gimel, and in the Vilna edition, this is Lamed Beis Omid Beis at the Mishnah Allah Gimel. Ezu Peret, what is considered to be Peret? No share b'shah shabtir, that which falls out of your hand. Pnei Moshe says garger o shnei garger shofli me'eshkol, a grape or two which falls off the cluster b'shah shabtir when you're harvesting the grapes. Botzer, if you were harvesting okat, it's a eshkol. You snapped off the cluster. Husbach ba'alim, and somehow the you could seize on to, instead of to the tree, you seize onto the leaf by v'nafal oretz, and it fell to the land. V'nifrat, and this way it became separated, seems to be parrot, just like the grapes. No, haresh ba'albayis, amongst ba'albayis. Moshe says shlo nifrat derech b'tzira. It wasn't, didn't compare it in a normal way of harvesting. If somebody puts a basket under the grapevine when he's harvesting, you are stealing from the poor people. It says, Al tasik vul olim, do not override the boundary of the olim, the people who will go up, or in this case, the people who are going to tanim, who are going to collect from this the tree. We're looking for the pasuk. Pasuk says, "Al tasei gvul olam asher asur b'secha." The actual lashon of the pasuk is gvul olam, but the Mishnah has it as gvul olim. So I guess it's kind of like a drasha. That's the people who will go up and get the fruit of this tree. Ezu olos, what's going to be olos? Koshen lo ketef lo netef. It doesn't have a shoulder, and it doesn't have a drip. So this is this is due with the form of the cluster. And Moshe explains is ketep sim zeh gav zeh, when you have the clusters one on top of each other. When they're from the spine of the cluster come out several smaller clusters. They call them psiin. They're called psiin. Language of cuts. Cuts which are break off. As we have in Bereshis by the Brisa Besorim. Targum Yerushalmi Peah. And when they line each other, it's called ketef, like a load which is on a person's shoulder. When they're scattered, one here, one there, they don't have that form of the cluster. And ketef, it's not considered to be ketef. And the Gemara, the Mishnah goes on and says further, im yesh lo ketef o netef, if it has either ketef or netef, or rezish ba'albayis, it belongs to the ba'albayis, has to have no ketef nor no netef. In other words, it's the single grapes, and not in the form of a cluster. Only then does it belong to the oni. The Moshe goes on and says, "Kol eshkoshin lo ketef lo netef kolel lifishu lifnei shal eshkolos kolel lifnei ish." It's like a young child relative to an adult. Says the Mishnah further, im sofek lanim. If it's a question, then it goes to anim. Moshe explains, shenirim ha'eshkolos ketanim kilu shalchos hazeh. It seems like the small clusters do line each other. Enu shalchos yofeh. They don't lie in a way which is normal, or I guess blatant. We're not sure if it has ketef or not. Then it belongs to anim. So break down. Sofek leket. If you have a doubt of leket, it's leket. And here too the same thing. Olos shabarkuva. You have olos which are in the knee, says the Pnei Moshe. Yichol shows moresh. You have a shoot of the grapevine. Shetluyim bo eshkolos harbe. There are many clusters hanging there. From yotze ken kesher bizmora. Sometimes there's something like a knot in that branch. Nikres arkuva, and it's called a knee because I guess it goes off at an angle. V'yesh bo olos, and it's got olos hanging from it. In the cresses here, eshkol, if it can be snapped off together with the cluster. Harei Babais belongs to Babais. And if not, it's distinct. Harei Shanim belongs to the poor people. Gargar Yechidi, if you have an individual grape on the grapevine. Remember, Eshkol, Rebbe says it's a cluster. He says in Pnei Moshe, Gargar Yechidi, Eshkol she'ein lo Eshkolos ketana shel zel gabe zeh. It's a cluster which does not have small clusters lying on each other. Kima gargarim mechorim sharit atzmo. The grapes are adhering to the spine itself, so it's not just a single grape, but single grapes adhering to a spine. You know, it's an eshkol time Rabbi Yehuda mefarsh Gemara. Gemara was going to explain this even in the nishar ba'olos kenokeb zayis shnayim shlosha gargarim. Masha shnayim shlosha gargarim olos. If it's 2 or 3 individual grapes, that's called olos. Yosem Mekan Eshkol. More than that, if there's more, that's considered to be a cluster. Chamrim olos lo chashibi hagagarim hashofin zel zeli kori ketef. The grapes lying on each other are not called a ketef. They don't have the proper form of a cluster, of mini clusters, as we described before. V'alocha kechachamim, and halacha is like chachamim in this regard. If I had a diagram of some sort I'd show it to you, but the art scroll does not have a diagram. I don't think the Kabanaki has a diagram either. So we are stuck. Let's see. Nope, no diagrams. Okay, it would be nice, useful to have a diagram. Don't have one. Okay, says the Gemara further. Hadamara. This teaches us, says the Gemara, Peret b'nishiraso kadosh. That peret, when it falls off, it's kadosh. Moshe is saying also, I think I was called to ask a gefen, since they forbade you to put a basket underneath the grapevine. The kabbalah peret to receive the peret. Shemamina shemiyam nishiraso, meaning when it falls. Mina eshka from the cluster. Kol shagil arts 4 reaches the ground. Harei kadosh lanim is considered to be holy for and designated for that name. The Pekilian Shas adds, if the name caught it in the air, Yerushalmi belongs to them. Okay, the meaning but tomorrow daf kafei dafkin yatsuruba mitachas yad balabais. But that's like we find in tomorrow. But he says specifically if most of it has come already out from the hand of balabais, kamina b'shas sham, and the Gemara tomorrow and Ba'al Chein Lechem Shamayim kan. Lechem Shamayim Yaakov is Perushon Mishnais. Kain Sinanu Mokom Rambam B'Chidal. Pisa ein ono tzrichim litchok b'tan masising tani kozos aniyim to mishum shtu garam lo shloye d'oretz. Says go to Shas according to this interpretation. It's not that we're stealing the aniyim because you don't let it fall to the ground. Rakbi would see Russell question, but as it's fallen, already belongs to the aniyim. And they reserve Aish no Selio, Vashmat Sham, Sher Besoreh, Besor Harizal, Shevi Divi Yerushalmi Doma. Shani v'chulei raya farsha mishnah de'enu gezel gomor ragram is a pshat. It's not true gezel. It's only causing gezel, but which would not be like the Gillian Shas. Because Gillian Shas in midair it's already gezel. Unless enu rag dichui. The Gillian Shas no says it's actually true gezel. It's a dichui to say it's not gezel gomor, but it is gezel gomor. Okay, the Ribaz says. On this, actually, get up to the yeah. Let's go for the Gemara. Lace of the pshita shelter the ilfa. Does this not resolve ilfa's question? The ilfa shaw if asks leket min shiraso maushi kaddish. There's leket kaddish when it falls off. And that's what the beginning of Shas is referring to a moment ago, that it's a Dechia Ba'alma, when in fact it is already considered to be a parrot while it's falling to the ground. And let's see that in the Ritbaz. The Talmud Einik Dashrak Shagilarts, in King Shinofa, Kalkala, Noise Kasha, Cloud, Michael Gazlan. It's not a Gazan. The Tisham by the Ilfa. It's falling down, so it belongs to him. Hashem Laz is shining, Loam Iklamema de low in this Kaddish Lanim. Rakbi Gilarts, he becomes Klash Lanim when it gets reached the ground. Comes Shagilarts, before it reaches the ground, Yochel Afkir. Babais can still be Mafkir. It still is. The Kozman Dafkok, Shein Mevatel, say Talucha Selechet. But because of this, only Davka She'enim Mavatos that we don't disrupt the pattern of leket, the Meniach Lo Lipol Arts. Let it fall to the ground. Rak Shemafkir, but you mafkir in the middle. That you can do. As long as you let it fall to the ground, if you catch it in the midair or mafkir, that's going to work. Avok She'enim Meniach Lo Lipol Arts, cloud, if you don't let it fall to the ground at all. Arim Vatabas and Maisa Leket. You notify the mice of leket, says in the Gazlan, and therefore you call it Gazlan. Kenya Afir Shaliba, the Rash Varosh. And then he goes on to explain according to the Gra. And the Gra seems, which is really like the Gilin Hasash, which we saw chronologically, the Gilin Hasash comes before the Ridbaz, so we're correctly saying the Hasash before the Ridbaz. So the Gilin Hasash is saying, no, it's really Gezel Gomer while it's still in the air, and they don't have this, it can't be Mafkir, it's in the air, because immediately it belongs to the Aniyim as it's falling, and that which it says, no, maybe it's Shani Shkolam, it's just a Tchia Ba'alma. But not the Ikradin, it really is Red Aniyim in mid-air. Ezo is V'chule. Ezu hi Ketef. What is considered to be Ketef? Sigim Zu Agabe Zu. When you have clusters, little clusters, one on top of each other. Ezu Netef. What is considered to be netaf, they're hanging from the spine and dripping downward, so to speak. They all have to touch in the palm of your hand. The Moshe explains, initially one says this is saying the low nikro olos not good. It says alos at you kulim because of pas yodo. They can all enter into the palm of your hand. In other words, it's very narrow. There's no netef at all. It's like very narrow. They can all enter into the palm of your hand. They once measured olos, and it was not. It can be substantial. Right? As long as there's no ketef below netef, it can be a substantial amount, 7 litros, I guess, in one olos in tzipori. So he has a different measure. It's not if they touch the palm of your hand, but if you put them on a flat surface, all of them are touching the surface. That's the eno ketef lo netef. It does not have the form of the cluster because everything obviously is touching the tablet at the same time. Ben Levi she's manolo meiser tevel. Ben Levi, who got meiser. The name Moshe points out is a tosefta. He got meiser for which Trumas meiser has not yet been taken, and it's v'matzah b'socha olulos. He found olos inside that meiser. Harei also some Trumas meiser mamakam acher. So you make the Trumas meiser. Why not? Why is that? The olos don't belong to him; they should belong to him. Olos lavshanim heim. Don't they belong to him? No, they were like we spoke in the Mishnah. We spoke about the kuva. So anything which can be snapped off with the cluster is not going to be olos. So here too, these olos we assume were snapped off together with the cluster, and therefore they belong to the Ba'abais, and therefore he legitimately gave them to Levi, and Levi can use them for Trumas Meiser. Second here. So now we're going on Gargar Yechidi. Rabbi Simon Tam Rabbi Large Rabbi Yudas and Nishar Ba'olas Kenokiv Zayis Shnaim Shlosha Girim. If you have the Bnei Mishnah that said Gargar Yechidi, remember Eshkol, we said it's considered to be a Eshkol, even as long as there are more than 2 or 3 grapes coming out from the spine, because that's what the Bnei Mishnah seems to say. The pasuk seems to say that Nishar Ba'olas Kenokiv Zayis Shnaim Shlosha Girim. Yosim Mikan is more of that. It's an Eshkol. And now we have a Dilma, a story. Rabbi Avo, Rabbi Yossi Rechina, Rabbi Shimon Lakish, over a Kerem Doron. They passed the vineyard of Doron. Apiklan Risa Chada Prism Persika. So the Oris, the sharecropper, brought out for them a peach. Achlin Inum of Chamareon. And it was a massive peach. It was the time when the parents of the Eretz Yisrael. So they ate for them and their donkeys. Bayashin left over Shirun, and they measured Kaldein Lefisa. The Kfar Chanina was like the pot of Kfar Chanina. Machlik Seshel Adoshim. which holds a massive amount of lentils. Some days later, they passed by another time on there. Trey tlas lego yada. They put 2 or 3 peaches went into one hand. They're much tinier. Amalei, I will learn on by one from that tree you gave the peaches before. Amalei said, Minenun. They came from that same tree. The cardinal later said about this Eretz Pri, the land of fruit, Milah Malacha. It became like a salt flat. No longer gave the same fruit. Meiras Yosh Veba, on account of the iniquities of the people who live therein. And so we have several Maisim now, but that's now already on Samach Beis Amud Aleph, so we'll stop here for today.